So, with that, we have another very hopefully exciting conversation upcoming. My guest for the next fireside chat, Christina Verchere, is CEO of OMV Petrom, that I'm sure a lot of you know as the largest energy company in Southeastern Europe. She is a remarkable person and has a fantastic career in international leadership positions across UK, US, Canada, and Indonesia. And due to her in-depth experience, I'm extremely pleased to discuss with her leadership and new ways of working in times of crisis. Welcome, Christina.
Thank you, Philip. Nice to see you.
So with that, given that I think history tends to repeat itself, and since you've been around for quite a while, I want to ask you, how does the current crisis compare to previous crises, like the 2007 and 8 financial crisis that you've experienced? And what's the takeaways you have from previous crises that helped you react within this crisis?
Yeah, well, in the oil and gas industry, we are used to some fairly volatile pricing and commodity prices changes. So definitely in the past, we've experienced drops in price. So we know how to respond to that, and we're quite well practiced at it after 25 years in the industry. What is unprecedented, obviously, is the drop in demand, but also the operational challenges of keeping employees and customers safe at the same time. So there's some things that we have learned, and I think we know how to run a crisis management team. We know how to bring the best out of people coming together. But this has come on so many different dimensions at us that it's definitely, I think, tested us. But I think we've proven to be resilient at it.
Yeah, I think like, especially in the oil and gas industry, I think like seeing negative prices is definitely a new thing that at least in my lifetime I have never experienced. So I'm sure that was quite of a surprise for a lot of your scenarios. So with that, like it was like some old things and some new things. What measures have you taken as a CEO of OMV during the current crisis?
Yeah. So at OMV Petrom, we focused in 3 areas. One was actually, that I mentioned, first and foremost was safety. And being a high hazard industry, safety and safety leadership is a strong value of the company. So focusing on the health and well-being of our employees as well as our customers. Really, and with that, half of our organization is working from home. And we've only got to that 10% in the office. The other half is a frontline workforce. So putting all the measures in place that protects the frontline, both in the filling stations, but actually in the refineries, out in the plants, offshore, all these aspects where people still obviously need to continue to work. So that leads to the second one, which actually is making sure we provide our product. In the end, energy is not a luxury commodity. It's a fundamental. We need to make sure the hospitals have got power. We need to make sure the vehicles that need to move and transport people can. So we need to make sure there's energy security and energy flow. And that's the second then. And then the well-being of the firm, the financial strength and health of the well-being of the firm, because obviously a big drop in demand, a big drop in price at the same time, that's going to hit your cash flow. Negative pricing, yes, I think it all had us eyes wide open. Luckily in the US didn't show up in Europe, but the prices dropped. And so the versatility and robustness of the financial strength of any oil and gas firm is getting tested. And this, I think, the company has proven to be very strong, and its strong balance sheets allowed that, but also the nimbleness to react overall. But the flow of energy and making sure energy was there really pivoted around the refinery and making sure the refinery though it could reduce its capacity, but also maintain its capacity as well. And this was fundamental to making sure product supply moved, because with that it kept the upstream operational, not just for the oil side, but also for the gas side. So it's a very integrated business, and it was challenging, but we have a very strong team that made sure everything operationally worked.
Yeah, so I think like the confidence that you have, right, like that this can be dealt with is very, very critical for, especially for younger employees who haven't seen something like this before in their career. And like in times of crisis, communication is always crucial. So how do you communicate? And I assume it's mostly remotely with your large number of employees.
Yeah, I think you're absolutely spot on. In times of ambiguity and big uncertainty, there's a very big role for leaders to play to be visible. And definitely for employees, we increased our communication tenfold from what we were doing before. I mean, we thought we were being good, but we really, and it was, as you said, it was virtual. So we increased the number of webcasts for employees to be able to dial in. Big shout out to the IT group, because we were really testing it. We'd have thousands of employees dialing in from their homes. And really to create that connection, to be able to explain to them the context, make sure they understood what was going on, answer as many questions. We used Slido. And what I liked about that so much is that you almost felt like you were getting the questions real time, and you could watch the questions evolve as the discussion evolved, and you felt really almost as connected to people as you could be on that. And that actually was quite, as a leader, it's important to connect with your people as much for yourself as well as for them. But I think so we increased the number of webcasts that we did, number of videos, so less written, more video communication out to people. We also increased our communication to many stakeholders. So we increased our communication to the media, we increased our communication to the capital markets, we increased our communication on conferences. Again, I think there is this role for leaders just to be out there communicating, explaining what's going on, at least in their world, but also listening to what others are doing and understanding and learning from this. Because if there's one thing for sure, we are all in this together.
I love your use of technology, obviously as a technologist myself. We're using like Slido and like all of these tools that you mentioned as well. So which of those do you think you're going to use like in a post-crisis? What are you thinking is like the things that you've learned that you say, hey, the crisis has been an opportunity, you're continuing to use this even if you don't have to anymore? What are the kind of things that you look forward to still continue to do?
Yeah, so I think you're absolutely right. I think there are things that would have taken us a lot longer to change in our firm that we were looking to change, but this has accelerated it. And maybe a little bit of context, the OMV Petrom was privatized, over 15 years ago, a very successful transformation, but still a legacy state-owned company during a communist era. So there's still more changes to be made. And I think the silver lining in the cloud is the way the expression I always use has been changing the ways that we work. Right now we have 6,000 people working from home. What I think this has done, obviously there's a virtual side of it, but I think actually what it's done a lot is about empowerment. You can't see people, so you can't be checking that they're working. You trust that they're working, and what you can see is actually people are delivering and they're able to deliver. And I think this is really important for accelerating to a modern leadership way, a more flexible way. We are ready for when we do come more back into the office, because we'll still be, I think, not a predominantly office-based organization, but office will be part of how people work. But we will revise our working from home policy, become more flexible. I think this is a more modern way. So, it's taking maybe a company that's considered much more traditional, like an oil and gas firm, and really being able to modernize it. And at the heart of that will be the digital tools that enable that, as well as the leadership changes of how we lead. So I do believe there is opportunity very much so in amongst us.
Yeah, I love that. And I've experienced exactly the same thing about like trust and empowerment, right? Like in the beginning, I was wondering like, do my engineers still code or do they all like chill at the pool? And we've seen that people work actually much harder than before when you empower them. So actually I've had like very good experience with trusting people and letting them do their stuff. And I think like I fully echo what you said, that like we see that now you can't control people anymore, right? Like in the office, you can check in when somebody's coming and leaving. Doesn't really mean that they're doing something productive during the day, but now you really can't, like there's no coming and leaving anymore. We're just like online all the time. So I love how you embrace the change and use this as a tool also going forward. So having said that, what is like for the audience, what is like the number one advice you would give the audience that might be possibly impacted in different ways by the crisis? What's kind of like the one thing that you'd love for people to learn from your experience?
Yep. And advice, like I can just give my experience and share my experiences. I think there's probably two that I would hone in on. And one, I think, is in a time of ambiguity and uncertainty, and given it's an aspect around health and such a change in the way people are having to work, I think it's really important to have empathy. Really important as a leader to have empathy, a lot of listening skills and understanding. Because I think when people feel that empathy, they also, it has a sense of being part of a corporate family. So I always talk about the OMV Petrom family. We're 12,500, so a pretty big family. But we are the OMV Petrom family. And I think it's important that people feel that we're in it together. because I believe in the team, and I think we win and lose as a team overall. And then the second one would just be the conversation we were just having, which is around empowerment. Believe in your people, and you'll be amazed at what people can bring to the table on that. And we actually it was in a conversation earlier today talking about people development. We were just talking about just the versatility of solution-orientated people that we have, and the ideas that they're coming up with, and the new ways of working, and because I think it is really important, because I think for us and in Romania, we probably will be working from home for longer, and so I'm really wanting to make sure that we can stay connected to people. That this isn't, I think in the summer we thought, by September we'll be all back in the office, and it's not looking that way. So we need to really understand how we stay connected to it, each other.
Yeah, your advice on empathy is so powerful, right? Like I think in this crisis, a lot of us have very different environments as well, right? Like I see this when some of my employees, they have like a 1-bedroom apartment and 2 crying kids around. Is a very different situation than like a bachelor sitting in his apartment and just like enjoying like not having to commute anymore. So it has definitely thrown some of us in different situations, and having empathies with that. And like, I mean, Ajay and Janet on an earlier conversation saying like, it's okay if your kids show up on a call, if it's okay if you need to have a sandwich during a call, like just like being more human is like what hopefully is like one of the outcomes that helps us all get through this crisis. So yeah, thank you for sharing that. And such a large, more than 10,000 people organization, quite remarkable with this message coming from the top.
I think your point is interesting, because we have with one part of my team, we have a virtual happy hour on a Friday at the end of the week, and it's not for work topics, but we've met everybody's dog, cat, children. We've had people play their musical instruments. We've had somebody DJ for a while. Just really that human connection. And I think this is the aspect. The virtual world enables some of that, but makes the social distancing difficult. So how do you be physically distant, but not humanly distant?
So now I'm personally interested. You said like everybody shows up their special trick. What's your special trick that you show at happy hour when people have pets, dogs, instruments?
I'm the one who set it up. That was my special trick on it. That was the one on it. So no, my singing skills and musical skills are very poor.
Yeah, same here. So nobody's interested to send me to karaoke, but that's for another conversation. So with that, I think I'm personally quite an optimist, like going through this crisis. And there's like this famous quote from Winston Churchill, who said like, you should never waste a good crisis. So what opportunities for leadership or otherwise do you see out of this crisis?
Yeah, I mean, I think we've touched on them, but I do see a shift in the way leadership is. I think we were on this shift already from a leadership journey, just as a society, of what people expect from leaders. But the world we need financially robust firms. I think this is important, but it's not the only driver that gets people out of bed in the morning to work for a company. There needs to be a sense of purpose. There needs to be a sense of belonging. There needs to be a sense of making a difference. And I think this is accelerating that. It's accelerating the demand in leadership to be those leaders that are needed. And I think that's a good thing. I think that's a really good thing. Clearly, it's accelerating our digital skills. I can speak for myself, on that. So the world of working virtually, the world of online, some people were way ahead clearly in the tech world. Some were more behind. Everybody's, having to get much stronger in this space overall. But I really think the shift in leadership and empathetic leadership, I think, is something that I think is good for corporations and good for society.
Very, very powerful. So at the end, COVID might be still a good thing for us to accelerate us to like a more empowered, better leadership. So I think it's too early to say that. So probably I can't say this now, but maybe in 5 years we can.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So, and having said that, right, like you talked a lot about acceleration. So can you share a little bit more what role does like innovation and technology play for you in addressing this crisis?
Yeah, I was thinking of different kinds of examples here, but the one that struck me, because I think it's going to bring the two aspects of the human side and the technology side together. And I talked about, we realized that we're going to be probably working from home longer than longer than we were originally thinking. And so we were really discussing as a team, okay, how do we get people to stay connected with each other at a much more human level, given that they can't physically come together. So actually the comms team got together with the HR team and the ombudsman, and they're all brainstorming different ways. And they've come up with a plan which was called Time to Connect. And this is actually where you get to, and it'll be different things. They just launched the first one today. And what that's going to look like, it's simple, but it says, okay, what's your best photograph that you took over the summer? You know, send it in. Okay, it's a small thing, you send it in. And then they'll choose the best. And then when they choose that, then each of the people, the team that they belong to, will go on a virtual photography course together. So again, it's a way of bringing people together on something that isn't work, but it is about the fact that they work for the company. It's virtual, but it brings the different technologies together. So it's very much the human side combined with the virtual world, ultimately to keep people connected. And that's what the technology is allowing us to be connected, but finding it at a human level to enable that. Because I think we're going to be in this for longer here in Romania. It may be longer than in some other places. And we'll go into winter as well. In Romania, we have some fantastic summers and nice long summers as well. But winter is upon us and is coming. And so we need to get ready for how we keep people connected when the sun isn't shining so much outside. So it's a small example, but I think it's there and what it's able to do. A more business one, obviously, is we've done electronic signature. For anybody who works a lot around the government, the government's doing electronic signature. This is a game changer because we had lots and lots of paper before. These are some of the examples, but the human connection, I think, is the one that really stands out to me.
Yes, I do love the electronic signature. When I was in Romania, the first Romanian word that I learned was stampile, which is quite well needed in all the Romanian paperwork. So going to digital signatures is very much appreciated.
And I think that's an example of that would have taken forever. Without something like this, that would have taken forever to get the change, to go through the management of change process. But when needs must, people and the human race moves pretty fast.
All right. With that, we have a question from the audience that I wanted to address before we wrap things up. So Radu Nikuara asked, like, how would you have reacted if employees wouldn't have been more productive? So if productivity would have decreased. So what was your plan B in case plan A didn't work?
Yeah, I think and we can still see that. I mean, it can still be that you know, as time goes, this gets harder and harder for people. So, and I think this is why, you know, I would say we would need to look at, you know, what is it that gets people engaged? What is it that enables people to be engaged and not? And then where is it times where individuals, they've got too many personal things going on to engage? You know, we have to recognize that in normal life, not even in these situations, human beings sometimes, you know, our lives can be complicated. Human beings are complicated creatures, and we need to step away from work for a while to be able to come back. And I think we need a little bit of flexibility to understand that. But overall, I think I would have got curious as to what would it take and what do people need to be able to make that happen. And I'll be honest, we've got some people who will say, please let me stay working from home, and some who are like clamoring at the door to get back in the office. And you need a little bit of flexibility to help both sets of people on that. So I would have got curious. But I'm very impressed with the team, what they've been able to do. I think they're energized by the challenge, by that, and I think recognize that there's room for flexibility too, while people work out the personal aspects of life that they need to during this crisis.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so we have one final question, and then we'll wrap it up. So from Daisuke Kudo, he asked, Mrs. Verchere, could you comment as an industrial leader globally and regionally about the future of the sector and role, especially for the young generations?
That's not a short question at the end, so but let's do it. So very much so. So, but and my first question always is, please call me Christina. Mrs. Verchere, I find makes me feel old. So it's very Sorry, polite Christina. In the Romanian. It's very polite in the Romanian way. So I totally understand that. So. But the reason I say it is I believe in respect, but I also believe that it's important to break down hierarchy. So, but I think if one thing I think that's very clear in amongst the whole COVID is that the energy transition has not changed. In fact, if anything, it will get accelerated. So, and I think even as the human race has seen what happens when we actually stand still for a while, what that does to the planet overall, not just about climate change, but about waste, use of materials, etc. I think it's it's been able to see the impact. And I think therefore, as a society, I think it will continue to drive hard on the energy transition overall. And I think, you know, for us as a company, for us in particular, we see that that's happening. We embrace that it's happening. We think it's important. We're part of the solution to it. We see that, in particular in a country like Romania, which is rich in natural gas, and natural gas plays a big role with regards to reducing the use of coal, as well as being a reliable source of energy when paired up with renewables as well, to make sure that there is reliability in providing energy on that. So, as well as the fuel transition as well. So if anything, I would say COVID to make sure the energy transition is very much front and center in any oil and gas companies dialogue that they're having now.
Fantastic. Thank you so much for keeping energy flowing, running in Romania. So I hope next time when I come back, I still have energy in my apartment in Cluj. So
Absolutely.
Thank you very much. And thank you for being with us today here virtually. Hopefully next time in person. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you. It was a real honor to join the event, and I look forward to being able to see everybody in person at some time soon. Thank you very much.